So I've noticed that there's a kind of recurring pattern with some of the sexual assaults and worse that the illegal immigrants have made. Now, I just want to make it clear, I am not saying that every illegal immigrant is a rapist or a sexual assaulter or is going to do these things. I'm not going to get all Mike Graham on you here, but there is a certain pattern with those that do these things, and I think it's worth pointing out because it just seems to be something that recurringly happens. And I think that basically we in the West are not really aware of what it is these people think that they're doing when they do these things. So here you have an example from October, where an asylum seeker from Syria, Qais al-Aswad, sexually assaulted 3 women, didn't go to jail. He was given a 6-month suspended prison sentence for 2 years and then ordered to undertake 200 hours of unpaid work, which I'm sure the women were like, yep, that's justice served there. In fact, they were present during the sentencing and said the assaults had made them feel unsafe and disgusted because he had slapped a woman on the bottom as he cycled past her, then grabbed and squeezed the bottom of another one, and he grabbed a woman's pubic area and blew a kiss at her when she shouted at him, the court was told. So 3 just, gross sexual assaults. And he, of course, showed no remorse because he didn't really think what he'd done was wrong. During the sentencing, the judge told the court that he claimed he was unfamiliar with UK laws regarding physical contact. Like, look, I don't care what country you come from, right? You know that grabbing women in the crotch, like in Syria, is not permitted. Like, why would you think that was permitted here? But the judge said, you tried to suggest the physical contact occurred as you tried to move the women away from a collision and denied any sexual gratification for this act. You showed no remorse at the times of these offences, showing no remorse by putting your finger up to one woman and blowing a kiss to the other. And so the point is, he doesn't care, right? He just doesn't care that these women have been hurt. This is just not his problem. This is not something that he personally feels any kind of guilt for. And so he just lies, he just denies, he just makes up preposterous lies. Oh, I was trying to push her out of the way. Oh, come on, man. Come on, everyone knows. But this is like the minimum of badness of this kind of attitude, because it gets worse, way worse, and we're going to get into it. So you may be familiar with the Sigal rape case. I'm probably pronouncing that completely wrong. But this is an area of Germany I'm not familiar with, and I don't know how this is pronounced. But anyway, in 2017, and I remember this happening at the time, and it really stuck with me, because I was just like, why would you do this? A young woman was raped by a failed asylum seeker in a nature reserve in North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. And so a 23-year-old woman and her 26-year-old boyfriend were out camping. He cut his way into their tent, so he was just randomly wandering around the wilderness, threatened them with a machete and demanded their valuables. Then he forced the 23-year-old woman out of the tent, and he raped her on a blanket in front of the tent, and then her 26-year-old boyfriend inside the tent phoned the police. And they found him eventually, and we got to hear his life history. And you can imagine that these asylum seekers, a lot of them, well, they're using this as a way of escaping crimes they have committed in their homelands. This one was from Ghana, and he had left his homeland after being accused of killing his brother-in-law in an inheritance dispute, and he feared revenge from the relatives. Why didn't they get justice in Ghana? But anyway, so he travelled to Italy, he was denied residence, he illegally entered Germany, he was arrested and quartered in this one place, and following his arrest, he behaved aggressively and violently, causing authorities to question his state of mind. And that's the first thing that the liberal authorities of the West want to do. Oh, is this guy mad? It's like, well, maybe from our point of view, but he has a very different way of approaching things, and we don't understand it, right? So he set fire to his own prison cell. 2 staff members were attacked when they tried to put it out. He attacked the 2 guards, injuring one in the head. And when being transported to prison, he was attacked another guard. He apparently suffers from grave personality disorder, especially narcissistic. So, okay, well, if only we had had some kind of way of controlling who had come into the country. So anyway, he completely maintains his innocence throughout this. And throughout the legal proceedings, like, he just acts like a lunatic. Just completely lunatic. But notice how his defense works here, right? So he obviously in Ghana knows nothing about, like, DNA evidence or anything like that, right? But the legal proceedings began in 2017. The defendant ignored the advice of his lawyer and denied the crime. When evidence was presented, including a positive DNA match, the defendant loudly protested, accusing the court of using fabrications, and insulted the victim as a prostitute. Right. So instead of arguing the technicalities of the case, he goes instead to character attacks. Right. What he tries to do is lower her standing. Oh, this is a prostitute. That's why. And it's like, okay, this is such a preposterous lie that no one would believe it. Right. You would have to be pretty desperate to be leveling this kind of lie, because in his mind, in his culture, status matters as much as evidence, right? Notice how he's not worried about legal repercussions in Ghana. He's worried about the victim's family committing some sort of retribution against him, and so he flees. And so he thinks that we also consider status to be some kind of mitigating factor that would make us lose sympathy for this woman. Even if she was a prostitute, you still raped her at machete point in front of her boyfriend. And reporting on this at the time was headlined "Forced Him to Watch," which is insane, but we'll talk about that in a minute as well. He only got 11 and a half years for this. He could have got 13 years, got 11 and a half years. We used to hang men for this, by the way, just FYI. If a man forced himself on a woman at knife point, we would hang him. Just saying, tradition, return to it. So anyway, he's currently in jail, but he'll be out of jail fairly soon. And I'm sure this guy's really learned his lesson and completely cleaned up his act. Anyway, the thing that sparked all this is this article that came across my timeline in November. And it was only a couple of days ago, in fact. And this is just awful. And I think this drives to the point that I want to get to, which is the many of the people who we have allowed to break into our countries, like I said, not all of them, but many of them, come from cultures where your status, your izat, is as important, if not more important, than what you have actually done. Now, the reason that they do this, I think, is to lower our collective status. If you watch I'll leave a link in the description to the last Stamford Bridge podcast I did with Arch, where we talk about the concept of izat. Now, this is an Eastern concept in which the group, the tribe, the clan, the community has a certain kind of social currency. And any member of the group, if they do something wrong, then that lowers the status of the entire group. And I think that's what we're seeing in cases like this. As you can see from the headline, sex attack horror as young Italian couple are surrounded by 3 migrants who smash into the car and force the boyfriend to watch as they rape his 18-year-old fiancée. So this happened just outside Rome. The couple had parked in the quiet corner of Tor Trieste, a park in the eastern capital, privacy, so they're young people, they're going to fool around. And the attackers broke the window, pulled the man from the car, forced the woman out as she tried to cover herself, and the man was restrained by 2 of the attackers as his fiancée was dragged a short distance away. As she was sexually assaulted, he screamed for help, begged them to stop, even threatened revenge, but was unable to break free. After the attack, all 3 of the perpetrators fled the scene. The couple, both Italian, then contacted the police. Now, why would they do that? This isn't, I think, about gratification for them. I think this is about actually the humiliation of the man. I think what they're thinking is, we're going to reduce this man and his woman, we're going to humiliate him by showing him that we can actually just rape his woman in front of him. And then that then has the consequence of lowering the dignity of all Italian people everywhere. I think that's what happened here. I think that's what was happening here. I think these men view our culture as having a low amount of izat. Our society does not have much of this social currency that engenders respect. And I think what they do when they do this, I think in their minds, and they're not going to frame it in exactly this way, But the humiliation is the point. It is to reduce us in some sort of metaphysical, psychic way, to reduce the standing, the status of the Italian people, of the German people, of the British people. I think that they view these as collective acts against us entirely. And like I said, it's not all of them. I don't want to be accused of saying, are you saying all of them? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the ones that do things like this, and there are lots of examples of it, because there's no quality control on who we're allowing into the countries. We don't know who any of these people are. They could be anyone from anywhere. I mean, as we find out, often they've committed crimes in their home countries. Often they're bad people, and yet we let them in because our sort of woke lefty immigration systems say, oh no, all asylum seekers, if they just claim asylum, then they must be fleeing. No, they could be bad people, right? They could be bad people who actually despise the people of the West, despise the West itself, and view themselves as undertaking a kind of reputational attack against us. And this is something that we don't understand about some of these men who come from these cultures. And I think there's genuinely something to this that is just summarized in the phrase I always use: they're not like us and you don't understand them. And so it must be very reassuring to the average German person that 1 million rejected asylum seekers still living in Germany as of 6 days ago. Like, if they've been rejected for asylum, what are they still doing here? They're not asylum seekers. They come from cultures that are not like your own. And you just go like, yeah, well, you can just continue to live in the country forever. Why would we deport you? And in Britain, just in case you thought we were any better, 53,000 illegals just gone missing. The Home Office doesn't know where they are. They're just 53,000. I mean, that's an army. The leaked document headed Absconder Pool suggests that there are 53,298 migrants who have breached their immigration bail or escaped detention whose whereabouts are unknown. Oh, that's great. So you don't know who they are. You don't know where they've come from. You don't know what they've done in their home countries. I mean, they might not be criminals, but they might be. And we have examples where they are. And you don't know where they are. And who did this? Rupert Lowe, the only MP in the entire Parliament who's actually doing something for the British people. You would think the government would make finding these 53,000 illegal immigrants a pretty high priority. You would think the German government would make deporting these false asylum seekers a pretty high priority in order to prevent things like this. Just FYI. Be warned, be aware, and like I said, I'm not saying it's all of them. I'm just saying there are examples of this, and they do it because they want to humiliate the people that they do it to.